I took years off my life. I feel like I was the president of a home association from hell. Thank you. I really loved it. I thank you, everybody. Put me in the Hall of Fame someday. No, but I mean, it was wonderful and built a lot of resilience. But I do this all the time. I love a theater company and I decide to be on the board. I love LMA and I try to be the president. I'm like, why can't I just be?
Can I just be in it and
Anyway,
like be
that's
a,
not your
yeah.
question.
Welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by brndMethod Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Roy Sexton, Chief Marketing Officer of Vedder Price, an international business law firm with over 400 lawyers delivering high-value legal counsel across M&A, banking, complex litigation, and investment management from 9 offices spanning the US, London, and Asia. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, you just started this role as CMO at Vedder Price at the top of the year. What attracted you to the firm, and how does leading this marketing firm differ from your previous experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think you much of what I attracted me to come there was captured in your intro. I mean, it's a very substantive organization, very hard driving, but forward thinking and very inclusive and thoughtful. I felt seen, quite frankly, during the interview process and appreciated for who I was. And I'm at a point in my career, I've worked with 4 different firms. Prior to that, I was in healthcare and worked at Deloitte Consulting 1,000 years ago. And, I've loved everywhere I've gotten to work. I've grown and learned from everywhere, but this feels like a capstone moment for me. And so I was looking for that opportunity to bring all the threads of my career together in a leadership role. There's a very strong foundation for marketing. There is a support for marketing in the firm, which you don't always find. A real investment in it, both financially, emotionally, from a time perspective. And so seeing all that in the interview process and hearing things like, we like you for who you are. We like your brand. We like your presence. We like your voice in the marketplace. And we know that you can further elevate what we're doing here. I thought, well, that's music to my ears. This is the right opportunity at the right time.
That sounds incredible. And I think you made a good point about support for marketing.
Yeah.
In my experience in this industry for 20 plus years, just because there is a role for marketing doesn't always mean the
Yeah.
department is supported. So when you have that internal support and the company or the organization believes in marketing as a
Right.
starting point,
That's right.
I mean, it would make your job so much easier, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is interesting. I've worked in legal for 15 years and I was privileged to be the International President of the Legal Marketing Association a couple of years ago. And it's the only industry I've come across that still, not consistently, but in pockets, there is some agnosticism about whether marketing is even needed at all. And some of it's the history of how marketing came to be in legal. There was a point in the relatively recent past, at least while I was alive, that marketing was forbidden. It was not to be done. It was part of the ABA sort of regulatory environment for law firms generally. And so that broke down in the 80s. And so there are still people practicing law today that worked under the circumstances of marketing's a dirty word. So, having worked in healthcare, having worked at supported other industries when I was at Deloitte, most industries at this point realize marketing is just something you need and have, like water and air. So it's both thrilling and challenging sometimes to work in an industry where there's always a bit of a question mark above it. And also, attorneys by nature are autonomous off the scale. They are trained to be competitive. They are trained to be individualistic. So marketing is a very collaborative activity, and you will have those attorneys that enter your door and they're like, I know what I need, go do it. And it's like, no, let's have a conversation because quite frankly, I think your idea is terrible. And I don't want you to waste your time. It's
Right.
not that I'm trying to hurt your pride, sense of self, sense of creative expression, whatever is driving you right now, but let me help you use your time more effectively. And that does usually get to the heart of the attorney's motivation because they make their money based on time. Everything's
Right.
based on a billable hour. So if I can help them realize that I can help them work smarter, not harder, let me help you. That usually cracks the knot. But here I've walked in and there's already that appreciation and I don't have to have those fights, which is lovely.
Well, I think it speaks to, one of your skill sets as a seasoned pro is positioning. So even if it comes to, the decision maker within the company, I spent a little bit of time working in-house with a law firm doing marketing, and
Oh,
I am very
God love you.
familiar, very familiar of the friction and the pushback and
And they're trained to argue for a living,
right.
so you just have
Yep.
to accept this is what you're in for. And if you met my mother, you'd understand. I've been raised and ready from birth, and you got to thread the needle. And I can tell just from our brief interaction, you know how to do that. Of being deferential. Look, I get my ego satiated in other ways. My creative spirit is clearly expressed in my home with absolutely no constraint. My husband is a saint. So I know I'm here in their house. They're
Right.
partners.
Yep.
They own it. That's fine. If you can accept that and realize that you're there to help them find their better angels, it can be a really amazing ride. But be prepared. They are argumentative. They are trained to do that. So they will spend more time arguing the point than if you just actually tried the thing that you're trying to get them to
Oh
try
yeah.
sometimes.
Absolutely. So again, this is a new role for you. What are your key priorities for the first year? What are you really focused on?
Yeah, right or wrong, it's worked in my favor in most organizations where I've joined a new team. I don't blow things up. I've learned the hard way maybe to be a little lazier than is my inclination. I don't go in there. I did that with my first firm. I went in, here's my marketing plan, and here are the 12 initiatives, and here's everything we're going to
The
go. And it was
first
like,
90 days.
it was crickets. They didn't care. They want me to make their life easier and handle the pain points. So what I do everywhere I've started, I just walk around and meet people and go in their offices. Now, attorneys are like me, maybe not to this extreme. They have lots of sentimental tchotchkes, gewgaws stuff all around them. I think it's a comfort. There's a certain personality, and I think I relate to it. So just going into their offices and learning what animates them, that breaks the ice. There will also, with the new person, happily tell you all the pain points they've ever had. Don't try to fix them. It's a temptation to go, well, I'll fix them all right now. Don't do that. Look for the patterns. Then complete the loop. Within a couple weeks, go back to them and say, hey, I heard this was an issue. Here's how we're resolving it. So I start to put together my short list of things that are generally in my repertoire already to get the early wins, to then start to have the longer term conversations. So I focus on media relations, thought leadership, social media, things that typically in a law firm have been left fallow or as an afterthought. And to me, they're core to what we do. Attorneys will sponsor things all day long and have all kinds of hootenannies and parties and things. And I think we learned from the pandemic, people can buy their own football tickets. They want to go home. They don't want to have a plastic cup of wine in your pretty office unless you're giving them extra value. And
Yeah.
what is that value? It's in your head. So I like when they write alerts, thought leadership, when they write them in a way that's accessible, that thinks in the frame of mind that the business people, how they think, not how someone might write for law school. I like social media because it gives the signal boost to that. It gives people a sense of self and place when they're tagged in something and I reshare it and I say, I do this weird thing every time an attorney writes an alert, I reshare it and I in my right on LinkedIn I say thank you, comma, tag attorney. I rarely get a response from that. But over time, I hear, I really appreciate the appreciation. No one's ever done that before. No one's ever reshared my stuff. And then they start to see that that's okay. Why don't you reshare your
Right.
colleagues' work? Why don't you take that interest in what else is happening around the firm? And with time, you start to see the culture evolve, and then there's a more communicative, thoughtful, leaning in kind of thing that comes across when you really focus on the thought leadership and the mechanisms and praising people for it. And then that lets me in to have the longer term conversations. Now, I was privileged and my predecessor got all the things going that I would have had to fight for, working on a new brand, working on a new website, getting the CRM in place. I didn't have to have those arguments like I've had other places. Here's why we need to do it. Here's how much it's going to cost. It's already been rolling. So I get to come in and just put my spin on it, which I've also been wise enough to go, I don't need to blow this up. These folks
Yeah.
have been here, they know the people, they know more than I do. and I've got to honor that, but help them, my each person on my team find their path, their career path. So that's the other thing I focus. I learn the attorneys, learn what animates them, start celebrating them, and then I go through my team and get to know them at the individual level, all up and down, and find out why are you here? What do you want your career to look like? What kinds of things do you want to work on? And then that usually informs a light reorg, which, I'm again not going to blow up the ship, but realigning things in such a way that it's sensible, people see a career path, and then the team becomes a machine unto itself, and I can then continue to elevate up and look at the bigger picture of things. So it's not a succinct answer to your question. I should be that CMO that comes in and here's my 12-point plan, and I will bring the, but I learned the hard way. It's like, and also once you announce what you're doing, you have everybody in the firm arguing with you about what it is. So I tend to be a bit stealthy and boil the water around them and have a lot of plans for when they go, we have a problem with this. And I'm like, yes, and
Yeah,
here's what
here
we
we
can
go.
do. Mhm.
All right. So Vedder Price has a strong reputation in a couple of niche areas like transportation, finance, and investment services. How do you balance promoting your specialized expertise while building broader brand awareness for a full service firm?
Is may sound counterintuitive, but you lean into the specialization. And this is really, 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 really hard for attorneys. Not these folks as much. I feel like I've won the lottery
I was
because
going
they're
to say you hit the
already
jackpot, it
Yeah,
sounds
they're
like.
already practice oriented. In fact, I have to force them to think about geography. Every other firm I've been at,
Mm,
they focus on the cities they're in and why don't we have more attention in Dallas? Nobody in, wherever knows about us in Delaware. And I'm like, well, just stick with me. They will. Don't worry about what the person at the Chamber of Commerce said. Let's think bigger. So what you do then is you focus on those distinctive elements. And I've seen at other firms, it's where I was going. You see, I tend to ramble and speak in parentheticals, so bear with me. They often want to be all things to all people, which means you're nothing to no one.
right.
You put out this kind of language that sounds like, what? What do you do? Because they're afraid if they offer the specificity, they're going to alienate the potential work, but you're not going to win any work that way. Focus on the distinctive thing that you do. Be you, be that person authentically. So if it is, global transportation is a fascinating area of law, and we have this wonderful event called Shysta that is one of these organic things that sort of emerged from the ether in that airline industry where they all just gather in Chicago for a week. They don't even have a conference. They're just meeting, gathering, connecting, and we have a huge reception. They've been doing it for years. Now, a fool would have gone in and blown that up and said, "What are we doing and why are we doing this?" I'm like, "Let me see what this is. Let me attend it once. It ain't broke, don't fix it." It's one of those
Right.
places where they gather and connect, and we are there as the host. And then we get to have all these wonderful conversations that then spin out into further content, further follow up, further opportunity. And so the more and I think now we see with the AI and content aggregators, some of my theories, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, I think are playing out. People really work focused on SEO and tagging things in the background, and I think that was important. But now we're seeing all of the content you put out there consolidate. And we now know if I ask a specific question to the gods of the internet, I want a specific answer, and it's going to be generated through AI. So the more content we've put out there on specific things, and the more we've posted it everywhere we possibly can. I saw a wonderful article last night, and I can't remember who wrote it or anything, so I'm going to take credit for it. They said, and people always fought me on this. We're just going to post on LinkedIn and we're going to do it on Twitter and nowhere else. And this thing said, avail yourself of the other engines that have further strength than you do. So put it on Facebook, put it on LinkedIn, put it on Twitter, put it on Pinterest. I don't care. But get that content out there so when, again, the aggregators are pulling this information together, they're pulling it from multiple sources and you're front and center. So I think the more specific you can be and the more content you can get out there and repeat and repost it. This is hard for attorneys as well. They're like, I wrote that once. Okay, but it's probably still a question that people have. Reshare it, add a note, reframe the argument. It doesn't, you're not in law school. You don't have to write something new. Or if somebody's already written on it, let's make sure people see your version, not theirs.
Right.
So
Yeah, that is key. I specifically remember a situation with a law firm I was working with. Once I started digging into the numbers, there was a specific blog post that was leading in terms of visibility. And
Right?
I said, this is an opportunity for us. And they kept saying that this is so old. And I'm like, no, I get
Doesn't
that. I'm
matter.
saying there's an opportunity for exit
Uh-huh.
intent pop-ups. There's an opportunity to revisit this. Like this is an
Yeah.
opportunity. No, no,
Yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
super old.
They fight
I got
you.
that part.
They fight you, and there's two things that I've observed. In one story, and I told it last night at a round table. I'm going to tell it again, and people go, "Here comes his Walt Disney story." And I know Walt Disney's a bit of a problematic character in some respects, but and I think this is true. I read it in a book once. That when they were building Disneyland, there was a flower bed between Tomorrowland and Main Street, and people were walking through the flower bed, and all the gardeners came to Walt and said, "We need to put a fence around this," and he said, "We need to put a sidewalk there." And law firms want to put fences around everything and not pay attention to the sidewalk is there. Make it easy for
Yeah.
people. Lean into it. This is, I'll get to my other point, but I also say this sometimes too. People think marketers are there for creativity, but so many marketers like to control stuff. And that's a problem. Stop trying to control everything and don't say, if I do it for you, I have to do it for all. No, you don't. Be creative, be loose, be flexible. And I just think that's crucial in these moments. And the other thing for marketers is play around. Don't worry about on your own, maybe not with your law firm's content, but so I started a blog about 15 years ago about movie reviews, and I had been writing little short things on Facebook, and all my friends said, "You should do a blog with these." Of course, I did a blog, and then no one read it. And I'm like, "Thanks a lot." They were reading it over on Facebook. I did the blog, and now none of you are paying attention to it. So then I got really intense about, I want people to read this blog. And so I was playing around with my own blog and learning things that then I could bring to the
Right.
workplace about content. And to the point you made a minute ago, I've been writing these movie reviews for 15 years, and I don't write as many as I used to. It's now kind of a weird graveyard of podcasts I've been on, and I did see the Superman movie that's posted. It's just a mix of stuff. But I have reviews I wrote 10, 12 years ago that are still
Yeah.
getting picked up. Weird stuff. And it's always the thing I don't think anybody's going to want to read. And if I'm snarky, they really read it. Like Pompeii. Nobody remembers that movie. But that review continues to get like 20, 30 hits a day. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know why. But and someone would say, well, nobody cares. They're not, that's old, but it's bringing them to the site. And while they're there, they're checking out some other things. They might be following me. It's helping me in search. It's helping people acknowledge that this is something I do. People would go, well, why are you writing movie reviews? What does that do with your day job? Nothing. It makes me happy. I enjoy it. And while I'm doing it, I'm learning some skills in a safe space that's completely mine that I can then bring over and make the argument sometimes as well. Because when I get that pushback, I do bring up, well, I have this weird little blog. Really? Tell me more
Yeah.
about it.
And
Okay.
these are the numbers. These are
And
the
these are the
stats.
things I've
Yeah.
learned. Yep.
So you mentioned that you served as the international president of the Legal Marketing
Whew.
Association from
Yeah, God
2023
help
to
me.
2024.
I took years off my life. I feel like I was a president of a home association from hell. Thank you. I really loved it. I thank you, everybody. Put me in the Hall of Fame someday. No, but I mean, it was wonderful and built a lot of resilience. But I do this all the time. I love a theater company and I decide to be on the board. I love LMA and I try to be the president. I'm like, why can't I just be?
Can I just be in
I
it
want.
and
Anyway,
like be
that's
a,
not your
yeah.
question.
Well, I guess my question is during your time there, so as the international president, you have front row to just tremendous key insights. What are the biggest challenges facing legal marketers today, and how is the profession evolving?
Yeah. And it's funny, and maybe I'm just showing my age. The same challenges that have plagued us continue to challenge us. It's just different framing around it, different sort of vehicles. I read one book. I know I read a book years ago in my MBA, The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, and it's one of those books that just stuck with me because in the book, and I still recommend it, he goes sort of sequentially through the history of time saying this was a disruption and how people responded to it and what happened at the time. So, for example, when we were going to digital photography, which now it's just natural to us, that was a big shift. And Kodak thought they were selling film, not selling memories, went out of business. The music industry nearly lost its shirt because they thought they were selling little plastic discs and made them more and more expensive versus saying we're selling an experience. So that kind of big change, and we see it now with AI. Sometimes I get a little bristly because I feel like we all go off a cliff about it's AI, it's blockchain, it's NFT, it's Internet of Things. There are a couple of years of phrase that everybody's using. but I do think it is a very disruptive moment that we're in, and all of kind of the challenges that we just described in terms of navigating change within an organization are that much more pronounced when the world is moving faster than we are. And I think we see it also around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I still don't understand why that is a dirty word to some people. It is truly about bringing everyone to the table in a way that they can contribute in their fullest way. And why wouldn't any business person want that? So and we have the generational things that we've been talking about for 10, 15 years that remain and are becoming more pronounced because technology is making them more pronounced. And we have younger laterals coming in who expect their firm to work like an iPhone. And law firm management is still in the mindset of, well, we'll see and check on that and let's test it and keep a fence around it. And we don't know that that should work and talk to this. And what does that person want that information for? So you see this convergence of the talent challenges, the expectations of what the workplace will be like. COVID certainly shifted that for so many of us, where we all have had proven the fact that we can work from the moon if we want to, but now we're still having those weird arguments about the culture. And often the people who argue about the culture are the ones who aren't there and don't leave their office and talk to anybody. So that's a challenge. The technology that's facing us and the looming specter of who is finally going to be the Napster, and I'm dating myself with that reference of the legal industry, who's going to come in there with that solution that no one expected, and it's going to change the business model so much. And unless we're agile, we're going to fall down. So we've been talking about that stuff for years in the Legal Marketing Association. It's fun to talk about. It's therapeutic to talk about. You often leave those conversations going, but what are we going to do about it? But I
Right.
think finally, and what I focused on was how can we build the confidence and the courage? The technical skills, yes, that's important and will always be important. But how do we build the sense of intellectual curiosity in our legal marketing people to ask those questions in a way that's plus one to leadership, that helps them realize we can be visionary and help them see ahead of the curve in ways other people in operations just can't, because we have to be worried about everything that's happening competitively. And law firms that force their legal marketing teams to think only about the inside, and often they do, the politics of the organization. Let's keep this attorney happy. Those people are never going to learn to be true marketers. They're never going to look at the competition and look at the environment. And don't just look at the industry itself and your own competition. Look at other industries, look at retail, look at the film industry, look at all these other industries that do marketing in different and interesting ways, and what can you swipe from that and bring that in. And so I think during my time, I tried to elevate the conversation. I may have been successful, I don't know, but it was important to me that people just came to their desk with a sense of confidence and willingness to go, I want to explore all of these influences and not solve them all at once, but figure out those moments where I can move leadership forward, when I can move our message forward and really become a more sophisticated industry in that way.
And I think that's a really good point because that's a question that we speak to. Our guests are across different industries, and we pose that question just to kind of get the wheels turning. But I think your point makes a lot of sense. There's the technical aspect of what is next. I don't think we will. There will be a shortage of learning how to literally do something, but
Yeah,
the blockage would be being open, curious, and confident to do
right,
it. I can
right.
certainly see that being the hiccup. I mean, we see that play out now. I
Mhm.
don't, that's just too much. I don't know. And so then you end up stuck and behind. There's no, like I said, there's no shortage of an opportunity to learn
Yeah,
how to do whatever the next iteration of AI is. But
yeah.
if you're not curious or confident, then it doesn't matter. You're
Doesn't
not going to do
matter.
it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not going to do it, and
Hmm.
you're going to be so worried about breaking it, you're never going to play with it. It reminds me of a couple stories, but one specifically, and if this person's watching, she's going to know what I'm talking about. I love you, but I'm not going to say her name. So when I was president, we worked on the annual conference. They were wise enough, either because of my personality or the role I had. I only had to work on one session and support, and the rest of the conference planning team worked on all the other sessions. So the session that I got assigned was podcasting, which is one of those love-hate topics. I mean, here we are on a podcast, but it feels like everyone kind of gets stuck in a certain way of talking about podcasting. And the session as proposed and what we wanted versus what the speaker wanted to do, the speaker kept coming back to, well, I want to tell people what microphones to buy and what lighting to have. And I said, well, you put that
The
stuff out
tech.
already. It's there. I want you to talk about what makes compelling listening. How do you keep your talent engaged? How do you, and that's probably I have a theater background, so it's probably the side of me that's like, we can rehearse and get our lines and blocking, but we still have to do something that engages and compels the audience. And they're not interested in hearing, well, I learned my lines by Tuesday. They don't care. They're going to assume you did that. So we were just like this about it. And it was so funny at the beginning of this person's presentation, they said, now I wanted to talk to you about microphones and lights and things like that, but they want me to talk about, but if you want, I have. And I said, okay, that's fine. But it's shifting the kind of conversation we even have when we're training our own. Yes, let's make sure they know how to post correctly on LinkedIn, but that's not the conversation. And also assume that generationally, the folks coming in, they're going to take to that stuff far more quickly than maybe I do at times. I mean, you would have laughed trying to, I've used ring lights and sure microphones and everything, but I hadn't used them in this setup since we moved into this house, and I was dinking around like an old man, like I gotta click that, So I get it. And if you don't have that down, then you're not in the right headspace to engage properly. So I understand why you want to make sure you have that down, but that's table stakes. That's the beginning of the conversation. So I feel like with any of these topics, like AI, I think that's why it annoys me so much. All the AI conversations are out. Here are the apps and tools you can use. Great. Why am I using them? What am
Right.
I gonna get out
How?
of it?
What? Yeah.
Right. And how can I use it to my work style to still complement who I am and maintain my relevance without creating my own obsolescence? And I feel like that's the conversation people don't really have because it's hard. It's hard to have that conversation, What do you do? And you have to do that almost at the individual level.
Yeah. Speaking of AI,
Yeah.
it's definitely transforming both legal services and marketing. How is Vedder Price approaching AI in your marketing efforts? And what opportunities or challenges do you see AI creating for law firm marketing and client relationships?
Yeah. What I've seen at Vedder Price and our general counsel just put together a really thoughtful set of guidance internal with our IT team, and I thought it thread the needle of, look, these tools are here, you need to understand them, but here are the cautions. And this is more from the legal perspective. Obviously, do not use it to craft legal work, but if you
Please.
need for other communications, things like that, again, table stakes kind of stuff, but also had a longer term sense of the world is changing, so we need to change with it, but here are the guardrails we need to use. So I appreciated that the firm, because I've been at firms where they just don't address it or try to lock it down, whatever
Right.
it is, social media, whatever the du jour topic is that people are worried about. Within the marketing team, I was again very happy to see the team was already happily, quickly embracing Chat GPT. Obviously is the
Good.
the Google of it all, but also other tools and AI tools that are baked into products we already have. That has made me chuckle sometimes. People go AI, and I'm like, well, we've had AI for about 10, 15 years and a lot of things. You just didn't pay any attention to it. But now it's called ChatGPT and it seems fun. So, or Claude or, whatever gets thrown around. So we use it really to craft content so that it's compelling when we need to turn things quickly, when we need to polish and refine them, when we need to do a change in word count, but also now we're moving into how can we use AI to map our data and look at persona mapping and get to the point where we have predictive analytics around who is out there who's likely to need, again, focus on your niche. The more focused you are on your niche, then the more you can put the prompt in to say, here is what I do specifically when you look at who's consuming content and what's happening in the news for A, B, C prospect. Are they in the market for what I do? So that's where I think it will be really exciting and fun. I think the caution I have around it is they're the obvious ones, proofread what you get. Don't have it do legal work. I'm not a lawyer, so I can just say that plainly. Be thoughtful. Don't assume it's gonna do your work for you because then you're just being lazy and then you're not needed. Use it to refine the work. For example, I just submitted a session proposal for a conference and I wrote something and I like to write, so I've been a little resistant to have AI write anything for me. But I thought, you know what? Let me see what it will do with this. And I came up with like 100 words and they wanted 200 words. And I'm like, I don't want to keep figuring out what else. So I said, make this a 200-word compelling entry with some facts and figures around the industry. And what they came back with, I'm like, great. And then I tweaked it and refined it. And then there was another section about what are the key takeaways. All right, give me what could I, so using it as almost a co-editor, I think can be very powerful. But again,
Mm.
don't sleep on it. Don't just go cut and paste. It's done. I mean, use it to refine and think. think about the point of view you have when you're working with it. And the other caution I would have is for the bean counters out there, and I'm not sure if that's an offensive term, but I use it. Don't assume now with AI you can cut heads. Maybe you can, but the truth of the matter is you're finally going to get to a point with your marketing and your operational staff where they can breathe. Too many firms manage their operational staff by how busy they are. I remember a firm a couple years ago, I said, I need an assistant. I'm dying on the vine. I was a solo marketer there. Well, if we have an assistant, what will you do? And I said, think, strategize, have a moment to myself. That's healthy. That's good. Don't talk about wellness and well-being and go, oh, now with AI we can cut half our staff. No, you're finally going to have your staff to a point where they can level up, where they can
Yeah.
think bigger, where they can do innovative things because the piecework, the chamber submission, the pitch and proposal, that all got pulled together quickly. The research got pulled together quickly, but now they can actually read it and give you some information. Because all my career, 25 years, we'd turn reports around healthcare and they'd say, well, you sent us this report, but what does it mean? I'm like, I don't know. You wanted it in 10 minutes, so I didn't have time to
Right.
look at it.
Yeah.
Give me an hour,
I had to meet the deadline.
yeah, yeah. So think about it builds in some space and air. And if you have too much space and air, people are sitting around doing nothing. Okay, then use the opportunity to restructure if you need to, but don't make that jump too quickly because you're also going to lose a lot of institutional knowledge that you need to feed in to these prompts. But
Yeah. So what's next for Vedder Price? What do you guys have coming up this year, next year, something that you're super excited about for the firm?
yeah, I mean, and I mentioned it, we're reworking the brand and the website that'll launch in January. And I've done that now with really every firm of which I've been a part. It's sort of, again, it's sort of part of the cycle of being a marketer. And on one hand, you're like, why do we have to do this with so much regularity? But it gives you a moment to create a sense of community in place that I think is very important and powerful. I saw at Clark Hill when I worked there, we had grown through acquisition of a lot of regional firms. So we didn't have a coherent culture, people throw that word around for people to rally behind. Doing the brand, we did. And we didn't just do the brand, we made sure there were points of engagement. We talked to people, we created buzz around it. That's exciting for me. So I'm looking forward to that launching. I'm looking forward to further refinement of the CRM that we launched to really get past the is it pulling the right titles, which is still kind of where we are, to how are we pulling reports that are directional in nature and help us target additional revenue. It's geeky, but I'm excited about that. And one of the other things, we expanded our media relations team, one of the first things I did when I got there. And so I'm one of those people. I like dance remixes. I like planting seeds, literally and figuratively, like seeing where things grow. So I'm looking forward to as that continues to gain roots, and it already has, and I see this snowball effect happen where the attorneys are out there. They have the confidence and the courage to speak to the media, to talk on issues, and that we continue to grow our following on, all the channels that we have. So none of those are. I've been in this game so long, nothing I'm going to say is like, I'm going to fly us to the moon. No, I am doing my job, but it's fun to me to be in a new environment to bring to them what I've learned other places and help them, find the voice that they deserve to have. So
Well, that wraps today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Roy Sexton, Chief Marketing Officer of Vedder Price. We'll have contact information for the firm in the show notes for anyone interested in learning more. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.
thank you.